Hey, legends, welcome back to Entrepreneur 101, from concept to exit and everything in between. Listen, we got a great guest with us today, all the way from Georgia. We were just talking about how beautiful I think Georgia is. Tony Kitchens is joining us. He is the owner of ARK Enterprises. He is an author, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and I'm glad I said that right because I didn't know if I'd be able to spit it out right or not. Tony's Kitchens, listen, he's a business coach. He's had the entrepreneurial spirit since I think he was around 15 years old, if I remember correctly, listening to his uncle talk about business, and we'll get to that. But his businesses have generated, more than $1 million in revenue, and he has serviced some of the largest multinational corporations in the world. With that being said, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Reggie, for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to the legends in your audience. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're glad to have you. So listen, you know what? Usually I start with trying to find out a little bit about the background to let people know, listen, you know what? Here's just another normal everyday guy, not born into money, nothing real special as far as training or anything. And you know what, if a guy like you can do it, if a guy like me can do it, hey, why can't they do it, right? So I want to get into a little bit of your background. And I'm going to take a question you started your book with, actually, and we're going to get into your book a little bit later on, the gift of pain. Is that correct? Yes. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. But what I want to do is ask you, right, and this is right from your book, how does an average boy from the south side of Chicago, whose father only had a third grade education, grow a business from $0 to more than $100 million before the age of 50? Let's start with that.
That's a great question.
Well, it came from a great book, I'll tell you.
I'm trying to figure out how that happened as well. I think the thing that I would tell the legends, your audience members, is there is nothing special about my story. It's repeatable. It's transferable. It's something that literally anyone can have a similar story or one that's even better. As I look back, what I believe gave me the ability to be more than I ever thought that I wanted to be was the freedom that my parents gave me.
Right.
So it started out, as you referenced a little while ago, just being able to sit at the kitchen table as a young boy, and I don't remember how old I was, maybe 7 or 8 years old, just listening to my uncle when he came in from Puerto Rico, which is where he lived, but he traveled for business. He owned a company and still does to this day.
Right.
Same company, and just listening to their conversations. And my parents weren't business people, but the part of the conversations that I remember was he would be going to Spain and to Germany and all of these places selling the products that he was selling. And that just intrigued me. It was, these are places that as a kid you would read about in National Geographic at school or the encyclopedias.
Right.
But you didn't see them on TV because we just had channels 2, 5, 7, 9, and 32.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there was no internet.
Right.
But just to hear that, and I just remember that it was just this amazing thing. But the vehicle that he used to do it was being an entrepreneur. The first time I heard the word entrepreneur was out of my uncle's mouth.
Right. Okay.
I didn't read it before that because, again, I was very young. Didn't read it, didn't hear about it. But that was the first thing, is by having people around me who did not put limitations on me.
Right.
So even though they didn't achieve everything that they wanted to achieve in life, they didn't tell me or my sisters that we couldn't do it.
Right.
And that was extremely important. And that's how my journey started, really.
Right. And, like I said, learning about you and reading your book is, your story sounded a lot similar to mine, except I didn't have the sisters. I know you got an older and a younger. But your parents, sent you to school. They paid tuition for you to go to school. And I know, there was times where you kind of struggled with that. I think I remember something about a report card or something coming home, or you'd read it out in the hallway because, you didn't want to let them down, and you knew how much they were struggling to come up with that tuition money, but they always found a way. And is that kind of where you think you got your drive and your, ambition to never quit?
Absolutely. And it was one of those things where growing up as a child, just like you mentioned, high school and grammar school, they pull rabbits out of hats. And I don't know how they did it.
Right.
But as a kid, it's not that you expect that because you feel the gravity of it as well. You can see when they would have to sacrifice, we can see that.
Right.
Right. We would see it. And just the frustration of having bills that came in and maybe didn't have money, this paycheck to cover it, et cetera. And they did the best that they can do. And the responsibility that you have that I had as a kid in grammar school and in high school, what I figured was I need to be able to at least take the load off and not add more responsibility to it.
Right.
And one of the things, I don't know if I mentioned this in the book or not, I believe I may have. Even in high school, I went to the Army. I joined the Army my junior year in high school.
You did. Yeah.
Yeah, over the summer, I went to basic training and then I finished my advanced training after that, after I graduated. So the next summer, but I kept all of the money from training that summer and gave it to my mom, and she uses the down payment on her car.
Right.
Now, Reggie, the thing was, I drove her car
more than she did. Yeah.
But it was one of those things where anytime I could contribute, not just financially, but chores around the house, taking the load off,
right,
whatever it was, I felt that it was my responsibility to do. And my sister, older sister, did the same.
right.
And so did my younger sister when she came along. So yes, we had that awareness that money just doesn't grow on trees. And we had the awareness that our parents made great sacrifices to put all of us in private school.
Right.
And that was tough. And high school tuition was grammar school and high school. It was tough.
Right.
Absolutely tough.
Yeah.
But when I got to the point where I had the resources a little bit later in life, I made sure that I didn't pay them back, but I made sure that whatever they wanted to do, wherever they wanted to travel, whatever they wanted to do, I paid them back in that way.
Right.
And also just being a good son and being respectful. And, we would go, Reggie, real quick. We would literally go to the grocery store. My mom, my dad, both of my sisters, two of my nephews, and me to get a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's how tight we were.
Right. And I remember
the struggle.
I remember that from your story that you said, you did outings as a family because you had that tightness but kudos to you and this is a testament to your parents' upbringing as well, as that you recognized what they had given you, because let's face it, a lot of young people, they don't recognize it. A lot of them, whether we call it entitlement or whatever it is, they get used to it and they don't realize the struggles that mom and dad went through to get us, to where we want to go. And I remember too, you saying, you never felt like you didn't have, you always had what you needed and didn't realize what you didn't have, maybe, the extra special things. You had shoes on your feet, you had clothes on your back, and didn't feel like you were missing out on anything. And I can relate to that as well. And I remember from your story, when your dad had a seizure, that you had talked about, you started to understand about doing the dishes and cleaning house and stuff like that as a way of contributing to the family. Even though it wasn't financial, you took that burden off of mom and dad and the stress level of dad to make sure, hey, you know what, we're a family, we got to look after each other. So that's great. And I experienced some of that myself with my mom when she was diagnosed with cancer, and I was very young, and I would be at the kitchen window doing dishes, watching my buddies play hockey, and hating every minute of it, right? Not realizing that we're being set up for success later in life. And so it's I've been loving the book so far. So listen, I know you have a belief that everybody can change their perspective on fear, pain, and challenges and use them as fuel for creating an amazing life. Can we talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just gave a great example of that. You sitting there watching your friends play and have fun, and you're doing the things that you have to do.
Right.
And that's a sacrifice. And I'm sure that that was painful. I'm
Oh,
sure that you looking out there, yeah, and your friends probably saying, "Come on, Reggie, come hang out." And then the next day they're talking about everybody had this great score and great game. But in that moment, it's painful for you not to be there. But at the same time, what you get out of that, the gift that you got was, I can guarantee you to this day that you're probably more of a responsible person than some of those people who were playing the game that day.
oh, absolutely.
And that's because you started out early understanding and feeling that, okay, this pain that I have right now, it, it's going to pay off at some point. There's a silver lining. I don't know what that is, but this can absolutely be taught.
Right.
This is not something that people are born with. It's what do we do? What do you and I do and other legends? What do we do when we're faced with a situation that's not something we want to be dealing with, whatever that is? It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be financial challenges, relationship. What is it? And we're faced with these things and it creates pain. And then you have fear, fear of the unknown. Well, what happens if this relationship doesn't work? Or what happens, if you can't pay bills next week or next month? There's that
Right.
fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I say is, especially with pain, is you will always get through it for sure. It may not be easy, but it will pass at a certain point. But if we choose to look at that event or look at that situation and constantly focus back on the pain side of it, we don't understand what a blessing or lesson we could have learned from that.
Right.
And what I do is when I look back in life, I'm not constantly looking in the rearview mirror, thinking of all the things that went wrong. I'm looking in the rearview mirror to just grasp and pull the things into today, the experiences I have today of how I got through very tough times.
Right.
And then what you do, Reggie, is you just build this thicker layer of skin, and you really just take every experience you've had and say, you know what, I've been through worse. So I can get through today. It's still tough today, but I can get through this because the thing that I got through 5 years ago, I never imagined that I would be able to deal with that. But I did somehow, some way. So it's basically just taking your memories, taking the things that you've experienced in life and remembering that you got through them, and you can smile today, you can laugh today. And if you can get to that point, at least at the basic level, you've learned from that pain that you can get through things.
Right. And I think it's important too, where, you said we learn from the past basically. And you brought up the analogy of the rear view mirror and, there's a saying something about, the windshield is, so much bigger than the rear view mirror because you want to be looking forward, but every now and again, you got to look back. Right. And like you said, pull from those experiences. Don't live there. Don't dwell on them, but pull from them and remember, oh yeah, shit. I've faced worse than, what I'm going through now. And do you think a lot of people struggle because, and there's still probably a stigma around, talking about our fear and being vulnerable, letting people know that, hey, you know what, I'm struggling here a little bit. I'm feeling some pain. I can say for myself, I'm probably, my family tells me I have no emotion, although I don't know why, because growing up, I became very, very guarded, and I was on my own when my mom passed away, and I had some other stuff going on in that, and so I built these walls. And do you think it's kind of society's problem where we don't allow people to be vulnerable so they can learn to face those tough times and move on from it because they can't speak about it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Today, there's a stigma about men specifically,
Right.
and not shedding tears and always being strong. And that's the total opposite of how we really are. I think as a man, we just deal with our challenges differently. And people look at us and say, well, you're trying to be macho, you're just trying to be brave, or you don't want to show emotion. That's not the case.
Right.
It's not the case. we tend to show those emotions when we're by ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're hiding from anybody, but we, in our quiet time, we then come face to face with whatever we're dealing with.
Right.
And we get quiet and we get still. We shed tears. We think about things and we get frustrated. We get happy. But the reason why we sit by ourselves and do that is because we don't necessarily want to share that with everyone. And it's not out of shame or anything else, but it's allowing yourself to be completely vulnerable with yourself. That's the thing.
Right.
And that's really better than being vulnerable with a whole bunch of other people. Because as men, when we're grieving something or we're dealing with something tough, we don't want anybody to tell, it's going to be okay. And this is just, we don't want to hear that. And I think that's why we go back and we're just by ourselves. We feel the same feelings. We just don't necessarily want to talk about it, because I don't want somebody trying to heal me.
Right. Right.
I don't want anybody telling me, it's going to be better tomorrow. No, let me sit in it, because that's where my strength comes from. When I'm allowed to sit in it and have my own thoughts and feelings, as opposed to the outside world telling me what I should be feeling. So when you're able to sit in your feelings and embrace it and wipe your face, and then the next day you're hell-bent on not letting that happen again, whatever fear or pain you're dealing with, then that's how we move forward. But yeah, absolutely, that there's this stigma in life that people in general shouldn't talk about their feelings. But here's the thing. That's why there are so many people on prescription drugs.
Right.
That's why there are so many people buying flashy things, because they don't want to allow people to see them for who they are. So if I have fancy clothes and necklaces on and a fancy car, people's attention are directed toward those things, not my eyes.
Right. Okay.
Because if they look in my eyes, they're going to see pain and fear.
Yeah.
So let me distract them. Look at the shoes. Look at the purse. Right?
Right.
Look at the hat. And we never heal because people aren't asking us how we're doing, because they're seeing these external things and thinking that we're okay.
We're doing good. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. And you know what? And I never really thought about that. How we're buying these things to put on a persona to draw the attention away from the truth. And we see it a lot. We see it on social media where everybody's got a perfect life. I don't care, who it is on social media, right? There's what do they say? There's your truth, my truth, and the truth. So yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But now I read something else you had said, and I wanted to touch on this. And it says, because we talked about mindset, and we're going to get into mindset a little bit too. But you said, don't give your mind the opportunity to talk you out of your dreams. What do you mean by that?
Let's just say that one of the legends had an idea. They wanted to quit their job because they're tired of it. They're tired of management. They don't have the freedom to be at home with their family, whatever the case is. And it's Sunday. And they're like, you know what? I'm just tired. I don't want to go in anymore. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to either find a new job or start a business, but I'm going to go in tomorrow and give them my 2 weeks notice. And then the day goes by. They look at commercials on TV. The commercial on TV is this beautiful vacation. Then they're thinking, if I quit my job, I'm not going to be able to have a vacation. Then the news comes on. Oh my God, there's a recession coming. I can't quit now because there's a recession coming.
Right.
Then they go to sleep. And then when it gets quiet, here's the thing with everybody. When it gets quiet, when we don't have things come into our eyes and our ears, then your mind starts to work. Our minds are there to protect us from all the bad things that we can ever encounter.
Right.
So when we're quiet at night, laying in bed, our mind is telling us, don't do that. Don't jump off a cliff because you're going to get hurt. Don't leave your job because you're not going to be able to provide for your family. You're not going to be able to pay your bills. You're not going to be successful doing anything else. The key is, before your mind starts to talk, take action.
Okay.
That's what I found.
Right.
Take immediate action. You want to quit send an email the same minute you have that feeling. I'm out of here. 2 weeks, I'm gone.
Right.
you'll probably be very regretful in the morning, but not because of the decision, but because of the way that you feel. It's that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach that I actually took action and did something.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, what happens next?
Right. Yeah.
That fear kicks in. But what I tell people is just take immediate action, because your mind, the longer you sit there and think and let your mind convince you of all the bad things that are going to happen and all of the possibilities of failure, then our bodies follow our minds and we run for safety.
Right.
Oh, okay, I don't want to do that. Let me not love too hard because my mind is telling me I may get hurt. Let me not start the business because I'm going to lose guaranteed income.
Right.
Those are all possibilities. Here's the thing, Reggie, that I've learned, and I've been through some traumatic stuff in my life, like most people have,
Yeah.
but it was never as bad as I thought it was going to be when at the very beginning of that process of whatever that was.
Right.
It was never as bad. And I've seen some crazy stuff. And what that tells me is my mind presented an image that never came to be a reality. And I have a track record of that. So what I know for sure now is, as bad as my mind paints a picture of things, it's probably never going to be that bad. So I should put my mind's eye to the side and follow my heart and take action. And then here's the magical part. Your mind would then say, oh, so you're going to go ahead along with what you plan? Well,
Right.
now let me figure out how to help you. And then you start thinking of all the ways to make this a success, because your mind sees that you're proceeding without this caution.
Okay.
And that's a conversion that I think anybody can make.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I've had guests on before where, they've done things and got commitments on them and they hadn't even started the project. And it was kind of like, now your feet are held to the fire, right? It's shit or get off the pot sort of thing. So like you say, you have no choice. You have to do it because, and now, like you said, the mind's got to now flip that switch and say, okay, you didn't listen to me now. So now I got to figure this out. So let's talk about some of the businesses you've had and some of the startups you've done, and talk about self-doubt, because I'm sure at some point, when you're starting business, there had to be some sort of doubt in the back of your mind, and how do you push through that?
Yeah, doubt is it's something that comes to all of us. And my wife and I were walking this morning, just doing our exercise early this morning, walking, and I was just telling her about my feelings today, just in the past couple of days. I'm working on something very specific, and it just seemed like it's not getting traction.
Right.
Now I know it's going to work out for sure, and I don't have doubt. But again, here's your mind. Your mind is just presenting all these what ifs to you, and you just have to quiet that. But there is no way to stop that from coming to your head.
Right.
There's no way for you to absolutely block out every negative thought about anything that's happening in life. There's no magic to it either of how you overcome that. This is not, I didn't study psychology or psychiatry, any of that. I've just learned to use the tools that I've gotten over the years to be able to manage and deal with the thoughts that come to my head when it comes to failure. So when I started businesses before, looking back, it was probably scarier me looking back on it than it was at the time.
Right.
Like, what was I thinking?
How did I actually manage that? Yeah.
Yeah. And even now, if you would tell me today the things I'm doing today, 3 years from now, I'd be like, I must have been crazy. I had a kid in college, and and why would you even take those calculated risks?
Right.
But in the moment, Reggie, I think the most important thing is if you prioritize. Okay, why am I doing this?
Right.
And if the why is really, really big and really important, then you'll push through the fear. You'll push through the potential pain. If you fail, it's not even an option, because if your why is big enough, failure is not an option.
Right.
It's always there as a potential, and it may happen. You may fall down and the venture doesn't work. Whatever it is doesn't work. But Here's the thing: a career, a business, any of that stuff is simply a vehicle. That's all it is
Right.
to the goal, to the why, to the dream. So if one car breaks down, you go get it fixed or you go get another car.
Right.
If we get too stuck on the vehicle, that job, and oh my goodness, this job, I have to be stuck with it for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
then you probably will not get to your goal. If you have a business and that business is not taking you where you wanted it to go, maybe it's not profitable enough,
Right.
or maybe it's not growing fast enough, or maybe it's just not the right business. You don't give up on the dream.
Right.
You get a different vehicle. And that's the thing I think in my life that I've been able to do, is to keep my eye focused on the why. And the why has changed several times over the years
For
based on
sure.
where you are in life.
Yep. Yep.
My why today is much different than it was in my 20s.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And one thing I'll add to the why as well, because that's very important, but it's got to be very specific. You know, you can't say, well, I just want to be rich. Well, you know what, when the times are tough, you might sit back and say, you know what, I don't really need all that money. I can get by on what I'm doing now. And I like how you say, because, you know, I can't even tell you, Tony, how many different businesses I've started. And, you know, they just, like you say, it's not necessarily the vehicle. And I like it put that way. Just don't lose track of the goal. It doesn't matter the vehicle, right? Like you say, maybe it's not, maybe it sounded great and everybody says chase your passion. And I do as well, because you know what, if you can be passionate about what you're doing, it makes it a hell of a lot simpler to get up every day. But not everybody's passion can be profitable, right? Depending on what you enjoy. So that's where your why has to be strong and very specific, and you need to be able to pivot. Being successful in business is not having blinders on and just taking one path. You know, everybody thinks it's kind of a straight line heading up. No, that line goes like this, and then it cuts back, and so yeah, no, I love the way you put it about changing the vehicle. That's great. Tell me about, now I know you said that anybody, and I may not get this right, but anybody who's interested in entrepreneurship should probably ignore most of the things they see on social media.
Oh, for sure. Social media is probably one of the biggest contributors to business failure than success.
Right.
Here's what I mean by that. I remember a couple of years ago, I literally was going to throw the TV in the garbage. That's how frustrated I was.
Yeah.
There was this video that a friend pointed out to me. It was a YouTube video. 317,000 views this young lady received. And it was a 15-minute video. And I don't remember the exact title, but it was something like why it's important to start an LLC.
Okay.
So in the United States, it's a limited liability corporation.
Yep.
Right. And I looked at this video, and the whole time I just cringed and hollered at the screen and threw everything I could at it without breaking it, because everything she said was the total opposite.
Right.
And it was exactly wrong. Exactly wrong. So she's telling 317,000 people,
yeah,
go start an LLC, which is just a legal form of a company.
Yeah.
Go start one because it's easy to do. The worst business advice you can ever get. She looked like she was 6 years old.
Right.
She was probably her early 20s.
Yeah.
Zero experience.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, is this what we've become? Anybody that has a webcam and a microphone can give legal professional advice.
Absolutely.
And hundreds and thousands and millions of people look at it because maybe she was cute.
Yeah.
And maybe she presented in an entertaining fashion.
Yeah.
It is literally the place to go if you want to fail. And I look at the reason why I say that is not just because of that example, but because in order for you to build something that's sustainable, the type of work you have to do is not sexy enough to put in a YouTube video.
Right, exactly.
People would not subscribe to your channel and they would not watch that video.
Right.
And there is no picture that you can put on Instagram that you will be willing to put on Instagram to show the pain and agony on your face at night
Yeah.
after dealing with your accountants and your lawyers
Yeah.
and the state, dealing with filings for your paperwork and filing taxes 6 times a year,
Right.
which most people don't understand. When you're a business owner, a corporation,
Yeah.
file 6 times a year: one corporate annual return, a personal return, and 4 quarterly returns.
Right.
You can't put that in an Instagram post.
No. No.
And that, so the people that go to the internet and to get business advice and guidance is the wrong place.
Right.
But here's the thing: young people grew up. That was their book of encyclopedias that
Yeah.
you and I probably grew up looking
Right.
at.
Right. Yeah.
This is their set of encyclopedias. This is their dictionary. This is the business teacher that we had in high school. It's the internet for them. It's
Right.
Google and it's YouTube, the two
Right.
largest search engines on earth.
Yep.
And unfortunately, nobody vets what information is on those platforms. So
No.
anybody with a camera and a microphone can just stand up and say, this is what it is, and this is the truth.
Yeah.
But you and I know in business, it's different. There's nothing sexy about it.
No.
Nothing at all. And here's the thing: when you get all of those toys that some of the young people show on the internet,
Yeah.
you don't have time to enjoy them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had toys. I don't want to go into detail, but I had a lot of toys in my life.
Yeah.
And sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, I would remember that I had it. Oh, let me go for a spin.
Right. Yeah.
You don't wake up and just go drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis around and you don't have a business if you do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, the internet and you know, I'm glad I don't watch much TV at all. I watch football. That's about it. And then every night at 9:30, the wife and I have date night and we watch a series. But that's it for me, because like you said, it's become, the internet is one of those double-edged swords, right? I mean, the world is at our doorstep. There's no better opportunity for an entrepreneur as far as having world access. But like you said, there's no worse time for gurus, I guess we'll call them, for lack of a better term. And there's so many of them, right? I mean, you know, with business, yes, I've got social media and I'll be in some of these groups and that, and I see some of the stuff that comes out and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, everybody's a web designer, everybody's a marketer, everybody is something. But like you say, where's the proof, right? And unfortunately, who is it that Donald Trump, is he the one that calls things fake news? Well, you know, there is a lot of fake news out there, but I don't know if we'll take it from Donald or not. But it's true. There's no way of vetting, right? Because it's so easy. I mean, I could put up bank statements and Photoshop the numbers to whatever I want them to say in 5 minutes, right? But unfortunately, so yeah, like you said, it's not sexy, but you look at a lot of the people. Look at a gentleman like Warren Buffett, right? I don't think what's he drive, like a 1970 Cadillac or something like that. Like, there's nothing sexy about what he does, but he's got more money than anybody who's watching this show, and you know, you and I know. So, yeah, it's the hard work that doesn't get shown. And the other thing I find too, and you know, it's unfortunate with the internet, and I think this is why a lot of companies fail, and we're going to get into this next about the 90% in 5 years, is they make it sound so easy and so quick. And I was actually listening to a podcast today, and he had a very good point. He said, you know, everybody thinks within a year, if my business isn't successful, you know, it's obviously I got to quit. And he said something that was very good. He said, what if you looked at everything like that? What if you went into a relationship and said, okay, I'll give it a year, right? You're not even getting started. You don't even know your spouse or your significant half until you're 5-10 years down the road. So what would happen if you looked at everything like that, the way they're taught to look at business? I'll give it a year. I'll give it 6 months. You know, if it's that flashy object syndrome that the internet has taught them, that yeah, you know what? It's going to be quick. It's going to be easy, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and that's the total opposite. Here's the thing that I would say, because we always want to find something positive about it. And here's the thing that I would say: you have an excellent podcast. I know there are excellent resources on the internet. Right. I know that 100% for sure. There's a lot of noise, though.
Oh, absolutely.
When someone is looking for legitimate information, They're really trying to find out how to do something, whatever that something is. Google and YouTube are great places to go to find out how to do certain things.
Right.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So we don't throw the whole platform or series of platforms, we don't throw it out.
No, absolutely.
Here's the thing that you and I are saying is what I believe is you just can't believe every single thing that you see or hear on the internet. And probably the flashiest, loudest people on the internet are the ones you shouldn't listen to.
Right.
And understanding that the average owner of a Ferrari, before they started putting them on YouTube a couple of years ago, was about a 60-year-old person.
Yes. Yes.
Who was a small business owner, and they have been in business for 20, 30 years. And they can finally afford to get their lifelong dream.
Yep.
And they probably live in a house that when they drive up in the Ferrari, it doesn't look like a Ferrari homeowner's home.
Right. It looks like they have company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's still the case today.
Right.
It's absolutely the case today. As you drive around, I've been to 48 states in the US, in Canada as well, several countries.
Yeah.
And when you drive around, especially in the US, you see big companies. You see real commerce being done. You see the trucks on the road delivering real products.
Right.
Those are long-term sustainable companies. These flashes in the pan on the internet with someone who can create a digital course and never really deliver any solution, well, they'll get some quick money because they know how to convince other people to buy whatever it is that they're selling, this pixie dust, right? They're good at marketing. They're good at doing that.
Yes.
But 2 years from now, I promise you, you won't see them.
Right.
Or they're going to be selling something different.
Something new. Yeah.
It's our responsibility as entrepreneurs, as business owners and business leaders, to create something that's sustainable, where we can hire people so that those employees who don't want to be entrepreneurs and don't want to be business owners, so that they have a place to work,
right?
So that they can pay tuition and mortgages and car notes and have a happy and safe home. That's what entrepreneurship is about. So it's not just, let me do something quick to get rich
for me,
and I'll show my car on the internet.
Yeah.
And I'll flash cash. Here's the thing. I don't know what the revenue service is in Canada, but it's called the IRS here.
Yeah, CRA here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
As a business owner, you do not want to flash your assets. You do not want to flash cash.
No.
True entrepreneurs do everything they can to protect their assets.
Right.
You don't do tours of your house. Why?
Right.
Because eventually the burglar's going to find out your address.
Absolutely.
Now they have a whole layout of your home.
Yeah.
And you're showing them your gun safe and you're showing them where your stuff is.
Right.
It's just absolutely crazy what's being put out here.
Yeah.
But as entrepreneurs, our job is to, yes, we should highlight the things that we're doing because we have legitimate products and services, and try to describe it in a way that people find it organically. But when they do, it's our responsibility to provide the best product and service, and to physically talk to people and to respond to emails.
Right.
And we have to differentiate ourselves that way. But finding really good products and services on the internet, especially services, is extremely difficult.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And yes, the service industry has really taken a shot, and we've bought into that we should accept poor service, than you and I were used to growing up. And that's unfortunate. But I wanted to talk, and I brought it up briefly, about how 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, and you had made a point about it's hard to have a successful business when you don't know how to run a successful business or build a successful business. And it's kind of like that. Well, you don't know what you don't know. So I wanted to talk to you about, some of the common mistakes and pitfalls that you see, new business people starting, and maybe some pointers on how they can stay away from that.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things now, I see this a lot, is business owners taking on debt immediately. That's a big, big mistake. Even getting funding up front for a business, in my opinion, is not the ideal way to start a business.
Right.
Because that means you immediately have debt. And I'll tell you, working under debt and trying to build a company at the same time is a bad thing. When you own a company, whether you have a loan, whether you have investors, those become your business partners immediately.
Right.
If you go get a bank loan, they are now your business partner. They are invested in the success or failure of your company.
Right.
And that's a huge weight. That's
Yeah.
a huge weight. And how does that look to your legends, to the audience members? Let's just say that you started a business today and you went and got a bank loan for $25,000. Now you feel less pressure to actually go out and sell.
Right.
Because you can pay your bills.
There's money in the bank. Right.
Yep. So what happens is you just kind of move along, working on operational stuff. Let me make sure the website is done, and let me go hire a couple of people. And you're not focusing on sales, which is the lifeblood of a company.
Right.
And you're looking at that bank account, that money that you got slowly go down. But your sales are not increasing at the same rate. Now you have a level of stress that you did not have. And you don't want that level of stress, because at any particular time, a bank, if you sign a bank loan document, it states in there somewhere in the fine print, they can come to your facility and you need to open your books.
Right.
They are a business partner. They're not listed with the state that you're registered in as a business partner, but they are absolutely knee deep in your business.
Yeah.
You don't need that starting out. Let's just say that that's not the case. What a lot of people are doing now, Reggie, with these LLCs, I see this in the States, is now people have discovered that they can start an LLC and go out in 2 months and take on a car loan.
Right.
And the thought is, well, it's not in my name. Maybe they don't have the credit to do it.
Right.
It's not in my name. But you now just saddled a company with debt.
With debt. Yeah.
Now you start your company in a hole just to buy a vehicle that you don't even need.
Right.
And then, Reggie, down the road, at some point, the accountant's going to say, we can't write that off. Why do you have a Mercedes and listed as a company vehicle and you deliver tires?
Right.
Can you deliver tires in a Mercedes? No, but it's a company vehicle. Good luck. We can't write that off.
Yeah.
You got to understand the tax code.
Right.
So the point that I'm making with the startups is understand that it's going to take a while before you can start seeing the fruit of your labor. Every dime that you get in revenue, you have to reinvest in your company.
Right.
And it starts with your infrastructure. What does infrastructure look like in a small business? You need to have an accounting package. These are the basics.
Yeah.
Whatever that accounting package is, you need to be able to keep track of sales and expenses. That's an accounting package. You need to have some customer relationship management tool, a CRM.
CRM, right.
That allows you to keep track of the customers and prospective customers that you're looking to do business with. You need to be able to keep track of them. You need to have other little systems like that in place, a marketing system, whether it's an email system like MailChimp or any of those.
Yeah.
So that you can communicate with your customers and prospects. You got to get that stuff at the ground level first. You need to deal with a legitimate accounting firm who's certified.
Right.
Not the same person that used to do your parents' taxes 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You need a professional because the tax code changes every single year. And you need to understand that you have to have a strategy before you file taxes that you have to implement a whole year in advance.
Right.
So start now at the beginning. That's the foundation. And those are the things, Reggie, that you and I know you work on at night.
Right. Yes.
Because during the day, sales.
Right.
I tell people between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., the only thing you should be focused on is getting new customers and servicing your existing customers.
Right.
If you want to do some social media posts about your business, after hours. Don't waste the sunlight and don't waste business hours on things that you can do at night, after hours. You need to reconcile payments. Do that after hours.
Right.
You need to add people to your CRM, do it after hours. But during the day, it should be complete sales. That's it. Because the same thing with that vehicle that you're trying to drive across country, it won't go anywhere. You have the best tires. It could be very clean with all of these processes and procedures and QuickBooks and everything else to run your business. Money is the fuel
Right.
to a business. That's all it is. And if your business is a vehicle to get you towards your goal, it can be shiny, but it won't go anywhere unless you have customers, unless you have money, revenue. You have to have that. And that's what your primary focus should be during the day, is getting customers, servicing customers, and keeping customers. Everything else is at night. So now you look at those 24 hours in a day. Wow, where did they go?
Yeah. Yeah.
When do I have time for sleep? You don't.
Yeah. Right.
When do you have time to go out and play hockey, Reggie? You don't.
You don't. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the life of an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you nailed it on the head there when you said, you know, 8 to 6 is, you know, the sales, and then whatever it takes after that. So if you're getting into entrepreneurship thinking that, you know what, you don't like your 9 to 5, don't get into entrepreneurship, because you're looking, you know, 9 to 9 or whatever it is. My morning starts at 5:30 in the morning, and like I said, you know what, the wife and I will sit down at 9:30 at night, because we're both entrepreneurs, and, you know, kind of catch up on our day, and, you know, a little bit throughout the day or whatever. But yeah, there's no 9 to 5 when you're an entrepreneur, and when you have that goal, right? And that's why I think a lot of people give up, is because, like you had said before, that why probably wasn't as strong as it needed to be to get you through those hard times. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
And when you look at entrepreneurship, you look at these. I read this book, The 4 Hour Work Week, with Tim Ferriss years ago. It was a great book, really good motivational book. But most people, I think, took it the wrong way. Is, I'm going to just work 4 hours. I'm going to stop. That's not the point of the book. The point of the book was that there are a lot of things out here that you can create processes and procedures for that will allow you to not physically be working in your business all day.
Right.
And that's really what the spirit of the book was. And you can do that from anywhere in the world. But the notion that you leave a job and you're going to have more freedom and you're going to have more flexibility, you're going to make more money. Yes, those are all possibilities with entrepreneurs. However, that takes years to get to that point. The first vehicle we bought in my first company, it was probably maybe 8 years into it.
Right.
And it was a delivery van. It was a used delivery van, because we were delivering technology products. And we weren't going to go spend top dollar on this van that was going to get beat up.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine starting a business today and go buying a vehicle tomorrow.
Right.
That had nothing to do with my business. Right. But it takes time. It takes time. And it takes time for you to make enough profit that you can go on vacation, that you can travel. But here's the thing. I've been a lot of places, a lot of countries, a lot of places around the world. And I'll tell you this much. Your business never leaves your mind.
Right.
I've sat on a lot of beaches and been in a lot of great places. And looking back, and my wife just told me this about a year ago. She said, "You've never been this present than you are today." And I thought I was present, because I tried to make it a reality to be present in everything I could.
Right.
But as my wife and my son and myself, we'll talk sometimes and we'll reminisce about places we've been, and they'll say, "Remember such and such?" And Reggie, I feel like I have memory loss.
You're like, yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I don't remember some specifics that they do.
I was
physically there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them like they're talking about something foreign.
Yeah.
And the point that I'm making to the legends is this, is there is a responsibility that comes with entrepreneurship, And that responsibility doesn't go away when the clock strikes 5.
Right.
And even when you're on vacation, you still in the back of your mind know that you are responsible for your team back wherever they are,
Right.
and you still have to make payroll.
Right.
And no matter what's happening in the office, sometimes, Reggie, it's going to take for you to make the call to get that customer to pay on time.
Right.
Not just your person back at the office.
Yeah.
And you're not totally present when you think that you are, but you don't see that till after the fact.
Right.
So entrepreneurship, that's why they say it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. And I don't want people to be scared. I want them to be excited.
Yeah.
To understand that the reward that you get from all of the things that you and I described is more rewarding than they can ever imagine. I've had an amazing life because I made the decision early on to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
So all of the things that we talked about, I don't know that you would ever give it up. I know I wouldn't give up my entrepreneurial life.
No way.
With all of those things included, this is the only thing that I know that you can literally change your circumstances tomorrow morning. Absolutely.
Right.
It just depends on the level of work you're willing to put in.
Right. And you mentioned two things there I just wanted to touch on briefly is, like you say, you can be somewhere and your business is your baby, right? As entrepreneurs, like you said, it's always in the back of your mind. And the bigger your business gets, and you think, okay, well, I've got managers there, I've got supervisors, I've got so-and-so looking after it. No, you're still, even though it's up here and you got a team you can trust, right? At the end of the day, like you say, when shit hits the fan, guess whose phone's ringing, right? Guess who the bill collectors are calling. It's not that manager, it's not that supervisor, right? It's still you. So you mentioned something, and I think this is a good point too, about the 4-hour work week and working in your business. At what point do you think an entrepreneur can tell when it's time to start working on their business and to start trusting? Because I think as entrepreneurs, we have a hard time trusting other people to help look after our babies and putting that faith in somebody else so we can step out of the business to work on it and not in it. Do you find a lot of people struggle with that? And maybe what would be your suggestion for knowing when it's time to maybe bring some in to give you a hand?
Yep, great point. The first thing I would say is when people say that businesses are like babies, I laugh because babies
are easier. Yeah.
Businesses, the older they get, the more responsibilities you have. It's
right.
It's the total opposite of babies.
Right.
But here's that exact time in my life when I had to come to that reality, Reggie.
Yeah.
And I remember it very specifically. I was the one I was delivering all the services, doing systems engineer work. It was me.
Right.
And had a relationship with IBM at the point, and it was my company. But I started out by myself doing the work. And I remember I got 3 people together who were business people. 2 of them I knew personally, one I didn't know. I met them at a networking event. And I invited them to dinner downtown Chicago. And we sat there and I said, I just want you guys' advice and guidance here. I respect you all. You've been in business for a long time. I need to grow my business. And I don't want to be the person who answers the phone when someone calls. And I don't want to be the person out there in the field delivering the services.
Right.
And I'm not going to grow until I get past that. And I remember Milton Payton, still a good friend of mine now. He told me, he said, let me see your business card. I gave him my business card and it had president on there. He said, go get new business cards tomorrow. Take president off, put something on there, engineer, technician, whatever you want to put on there, put something different.
Right.
And then he said, go hire somebody and tell them everything that you know how to do about what you do today. And you're the person now who's just going to go out and get deals.
Right.
Because now you're going to have the responsibility of paying for this person's salary.
Keeping him in
the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my first employee. And it was terrifying because I was making good money by myself. I was living up. I was young. I was 21 years old.
Right.
And to think that I had now had to bring someone on was terrifying, because now it's a responsibility above and beyond myself.
Right. Yep.
And that's the point where I knew that I needed to transition and grow the business. It was the thing that I would offer for the legends, the audience members, is this. At a certain point, you're going to have to go from practitioner to business owner.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to grow and then eventually scale. And what I would say is get a mentor immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even wait till tomorrow. Success requires and demands urgency. Don't wait till tomorrow. As soon as you hear this podcast, find you a mentor. And a mentor is someone who has been where you're looking to go, or someone who is there at that place today.
Right.
Find them and you connect with them, and you figure out any way you can to have a conversation with them, and be very direct. And this is what you tell them. I see what you've done. I appreciate the work you've put in. I will work twice as hard if you would give me guidance and advice, because this is what I'm looking to do. And I promise you, I will not waste your time, because the worst thing you can do to someone who's a mentor is to waste their time by not following the processes and things that they're telling you to do.
Right.
They're telling you how to get to the promised land. You don't create the detours. You follow that path directly. And that's the first thing to do, Reggie, is to get a mentor. But then to understand that, again, when we talk about business, you're going to have to share some of the pie with your employees. You may have to bring on a partner. Whatever it is, you're going to have someone smarter than you, or train them to be smarter than you, to do the physical work, delivering the products and services. And then eventually, when you have several of those people, then you're going to have to bring in someone who manages them.
Right.
And that manager is going to be a paid person that's not generating revenue.
Yeah.
Which means it's an expense.
It's an expense. Right.
And that's going to come out of the profit. And then eventually you're going to have people to head up departments, HR, that manages all the people in their payroll. Then you're going to have a service delivery team or product delivery team. Then you're going to have middle management. All of that requires profit.
Right.
Your job as a business owner is going to shift from practitioner to full-time salesperson. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the arc of business. And business owners, even the most successful, are constantly selling. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos.
Right.
They're not necessarily out making sales calls, but when they post on Twitter, when they're doing certain things, Richard Branson is probably one of the best marketers you can ever imagine.
Right. Yeah.
He'll fly a hot air balloon with Virgin Atlantic on it, Virgin Airways.
Yeah.
What is he doing? He's selling. He's selling you on the brand.
Yeah.
That's what we become as owners once we've gotten past that practitioner stage.
Right. Right. You call it business owner, and I would almost call it, when we start a business, we can be a hunter or a farmer, and we're a hunter. We're out there looking. And at some point, we have to have some farming, but like you said, as a business owner, we're going to be the hunter. We're going to constantly be looking to bring in new business, like forge new alliances, whatever it is, and let somebody else do the farming, looking after those clients while we're out there hunting. So, and I love what you said about a mentor, because I get asked, people ask about mentors all the time. Where can I find one? How much can I pay them, and stuff like that. And like you said, don't waste their time. All right. Offer to work for free, whatever it takes to learn that knowledge, because, I've said before, you can be book smart or you can be street smart. And when it comes to business, I will take street smart any day of the week over book smart, because I wasn't that good in school, and thank God I didn't need to be. But, it was funny, and I'm going to move on from this real quick. But for some reason, I have all my report cards from high school. And I told my youngest son, and he said, I want to see them. And he's a very smart kid. He's in a private school in Jersey right now. So I brought out the report cards, and he says, Dad, I've never seen anybody get a 17 before. It's like, I said, dude, school didn't do it for me. Right. I don't even remember what class I was in, but yeah, it was just not. It didn't do it for me. I just had to do other things. So,
Reggie, you
um,
got a 17?
I got a 17 in something.
You were doing great. You want me to pull my report card out? They should have been on the dean's
Yeah,
list.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, I never. I spent a lot of time on the principal's list, maybe not the dean's list, but um,
But Reggie,
so
what's the lesson there? Think about this.
yeah,
What's the lesson there? When when a person's back is against the wall,
right,
for whatever reason, self-inflicted, created by someone else, you have no choice but to provide and perform.
right,
And every major entrepreneur out here, when you really look at their stories, I love memoirs and autobiographies and biographies. And when you look and you read those stories, the people who we praise today as being these brilliant people,
yeah,
they had some very traumatic lives.
right,
They faced a lot of adversity that we wouldn't imagine. We just see that they're the richest people on earth.
right.
But you know why they are? Because of their past.
Because they weren't at one point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And they had to work harder than everybody else because maybe they either weren't as smart or they were misfits a lot of times.
right.
But
Yeah,
those grades that you got, that's the reason why you're here right now. And the people who got A's, I promise you, they're in a different place.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, before we get wrapping up here, I want to talk about your book a little bit. I want to give you a chance to talk about your book. So tell me about, The Gift of Pain, what it's about. I know it's a lot of your story, but talk to the legends a little bit about it. Tell us about your book.
Growing up, I remember I gravitated toward any story that I could about successful people, but I didn't look at them for their success. I wanted to understand what made them tick. I was just drawn to stories of how people overcame just odds. I don't know why that was the case. They became my mentors and they didn't even know.
Right.
I
Okay.
studied Bill Gates like he was going out of style when I was a kid because he was the only he was the pinnacle of technology.
Right.
It's no surprise that when I decided to write a book, that it would turn out to be a memoir,
Right.
an autobiography. And it turned out to be the same type of book that I read growing up. And when I wrote the book, I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, anybody in particular, and how many sales it would get. I was really dealing with a difficult time, and I was really starting to journal. And I reflected on the past and how I got through these tough situations. So in the book, you're not going to see a list of the cars that I had or
Right.
the houses I bought. It's really about some tough times and how I overcame those. And along the line of the book is I stayed in there. Every year my business grew, despite these challenges.
Right.
Every year my business grew.
Right.
And the lesson for the legends is you can't read a book about success to become successful. You have to read books about adversity
Right.
in order to overcome the things that you need to overcome to be successful. So my story, just like you mentioned, Reggie, is no different than anybody else's story. It's how do you take where you are today and deal with the things that you're facing today and move beyond them and achieve so much success that you couldn't have even imagined it. And that's what it's about. And it's about the lessons that we can all learn in business and in life. And how do we move past all of the things that we deal with in life? And everybody who's read the book that's communicated with me directly,
Yeah.
there's a common theme. And the theme is it feels like they're sitting on a couch and we're just having a conversation.
Right.
It's not preachy. I wrote it in very plain English because I wrote it from my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to say it's a great read because even when I had to proof it 9,000 times with the editor, I kept saying to myself, there's some good information here.
Right.
And I'm glad that I was vulnerable enough to share, especially some of those tough times,
Right.
because it's going to show people at least how I got through it. And hopefully they can pick up something from that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like I said, I am in the midst of reading it, and I definitely recommend it to any of the legends because what I found was I could relate to it. When I'm reading it, I'm saying, you know what? Yeah, I've been there, done that, or it sounds very familiar, especially if you grew up in the times when we did, and you know, it was just like you say, it's very down to earth. It's not preachy. It's not salesy. It's just a man's story, and you can learn a lot from somebody else's story when you can see yourself in it. Listen, you know what? It's been great having you on, Tony. If people want to know more, if people do want to get a copy of your book, how can they get a hold of you? Where can they go to find out more about Tony Kitchens?
Everything starts at the website, tonyrkitchens.com. There are social links at the bottom. To get a copy of the book, you can go to upper right-hand corner under the word shop, and that will take you to the store. There is an audio version that's very special because I recorded it myself. I wanted people to hear my voice.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I wanted to tell my story.
Right, yeah.
And then for the young people who like to read on the go, there's an ebook as well. But my son did a very special forward in the book.
I saw that. That was great.
Yeah. And the thing is, in the audiobook, he actually recorded his voice and he wrote the song that's playing in the background.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's a music student. And I didn't want to hear that, Reggie, or even see his words until the book was done.
Right.
It was a very touching part. So you'll get to hear my son's forward and get to hear me telling my own book.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read his forward, I thought, you know what, how great is that a son, and we all inspire to be either we wanted to be that son or have a son who sees their father the way he saw you. And when I read the forward, that was great. I'm thinking, shit, my kids better write that stuff about me when I do my autobiography. But no, it was great. You should be proud of them. So, and you know what, those links I'll be getting up on the website. So, like I said, you know what, thank you very much, Tony. It's been great, great having you on. I want to thank, all the legends for allowing us both into their world today. I hope you got something from this. I hope you learned something, got a little inspired on it. And before we go, I want to leave you with the golden nugget, and I better say, hey, hit that subscribe button wherever it is here, because, I want to continue this journey with you. I told you we're taking this thing worldwide, and you know what? I love having the guests on and talking about entrepreneurialism. I could do that all day long. So listen, I'm going to leave you with the golden nugget. This one's a little longer, but it is inspired by Tony and his story, and I want to share it with you. So, when I started today's podcast, I asked Tony about, how he got to where he was, from being a kid from South Chicago, and life is about choice, and we all have choices, right? You could choose, to join Group A over here that's really doing nothing with their life, and you bitch and you moan and you cry about how everybody has screwed you, how society screwed you, your job, your boss, your co-workers, your upbringing screwed you, your government screwed you, and you're going to stand over there and you're going to be miserable. Or you can come over to Group B here and come to the understanding that the only thing noble about victimhood is overcoming it, right? We are all here for a reason, and the reason is not to stand over here and beat some drum about, how things should be and how things aren't fair. Listen, life's not fair. There's always going to be somebody who has an easier path than you. There's always going to be somebody who's got a harder path than you. And regardless of how difficult your path may seem to you right now, especially when you're living in it, there's people who've been down very similar roads, have walked that same path, and have become successful. And the only difference to becoming successful, and Tony touched on this a little bit, is mindset. Successful people realize that the victim card doesn't pay the bill. Successful people realize that there's no benefit to playing the victim. Successful people realize that they need to choose to dictate their environment before their environment dictates to them. So if you're currently, in Group A right now, that's okay. we've all been there, and I don't give a shit who tries to tell you different. We've all been there. We've all said, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda, if this person hadn't done this. We've all been there. But listen, I want you to do yourself a favor today, right? When I'm done, blurbing on here, I want you to reach into your wallet. I want you to reach into your purse, wherever it is that you store that membership card to the Boohoo Poor Me Society. And I want you to rip that up. I want you to burn that thing. And I want you to get out there and become that legend you and I both know you're destined to be. On that, once again, Tony, thank you. I appreciate you. Legends, thank you. I appreciate you. And we'll talk again next week. Take care.